If you have been playing Modern Warfare Zombies at all since the release of Season 1, it will have been hard for you not to have noticed a new being who haunts any of our journeys into the Dark Aether, anonymously named the Entity. While COD Zombies is usually no stranger to twist villains and unexpected enemies, this is a lot more mysterious, with its form even being seen at the end of the Act 3 cutscene, trying to reach out, evoking a bone-chilling scream in Dr. Ava Jansen. Whenever we are interacting with this entity, however, it isn't so much frightening as sad. We glimpse a very confused being with little memory of who or what it is, more than anything else, doesn't want to be alone any longer.
Help us. We can't see. We can't remember.
In this Call of Duty Zombies lore video, I want to delve into one of the most burning questions so far in Modern Warfare Zombies' storyline, and one that I think a lot of people have been severely misinterpreting, including I in many different storyline videos I've made on this topic. Who or what exactly is the Entity? Firstly, let's get into what I don't think. Despite the beliefs of a lot of people at the moment, I do not think that the Entity is Samantha Maxis, although I was very much convinced, like the rest of the community before. I've gone back to my old videos and kind of retitled them adding question marks, since I was very certain it was Samantha Maxis before. However, my opinion has changed the more I have thought about it. We do learn in the Act 4 ending cutscene that Samantha's status has been classified for just under 20 years, or 6776 days, and so some may connect that to the vaguely female sounding shadowy entity to assume that it's Samantha Maxis, especially because the silhouette kind of does resemble Samantha, especially when she was a child, when she was in control of the zombies. However, this is a colossal assumption based purely on the entity's voice and witnessing Samantha seemingly enter into the Dark Aether at the end of Forsaken. Other than this and some tenuous connections which we'll discuss later, there is not too much supporting evidence. Therefore, I'm going to disregard the fact that this is Samantha Maxis for the rest of this video, for the reasons I'm about to discuss. When we first encounter the Entity, it's for nothing more than a brief moment after Dr. Ava Jansen triggers the Ethereum neutralizer in a last-ditch attempt to kill the Aether worm and ends the outbreak. The resulting force opens a rift to the Dark Aether, possibly the first true gateway in over 20 years since it was sealed, probably the conclusion to COD 2024 Zombies' storyline, Black Ops Gulf War. Like a spacecraft having a hole punctured in its hull and having the inside sucked out into the vacuum of space, the sudden, violent creation of this anomaly causes everything in the surrounding area to be rapidly sucked into the Dark Aether, with our various characters having to hang on for dear life, but not Ava. Instead, her body begins to pulse with a purple lightning as she floats slowly towards the glowing aperture. As she gets closer, a figure on the other side begins to manifest, similar in size and shape to her, and getting closer at the same rate, as if the precipice of the anomaly was a mirror and this entity was her own reflection. The entity whispers to Ava, but just as it looks as if they are within touching distance, Ava lets out a scream. In that moment, the anomaly is suddenly wrenched shut and she drifts to the floor. Sergei Ravanov, knowing the Dark Aether better than anyone else, runs over to her to make sure she is alright, but notices that, for a brief moment, her eyes glow purple. To Ravanov, this must be the worst kind of deja vu, as he has seen that exact glow 37 years ago in Vietnam in the eyes of Samantha Maxis on Firebase Z. After the triggering of the Ethereum neutralizer, a stable gateway to the Dark Aether manifested in the Urzikstan outbreak zone, and after much preparation, Deadbolt operators enter the Dark Aether for the first time. After breaking 4 seals and releasing a surveillance camera, dog collar, pill bottle, and diary into the Dark Aether, they destroy an Aether worm and escape. As they try to leave though, they are met by the Entity, who has these items floating around it. The Entity tells them, Simultaneously, Ava begins having a hallucination that she initially believes is real. She sees Deadbolt's headquarters overrun by zombies being led by undead versions of Weaver, Carver, Gray, and Strauss, while the Entity once again says, Killing these undead, she seemingly snaps back to reality, realizing she has seemingly murdered Ravenov and getting ordered to stand down by a horrified Selma Green. Then things get even weirder as she wakes up again. As a side note, this is referred to by psychologists as a false awakening and is usually applicable to dreams where, while dreaming, a person believes they have woken up, but this is in fact just another part of the dream and the plot thickens. Here, Ava has had a false awakening after being carried off for the murder of Ravenov. She truly wakes up, being back in her room with no time having passed. Her eyes once again glow purple and the entity appears to speak through her, saying,
You will never be alone again. We will be one.
Ravenov then, perfectly alive, contacts Ava over the radio, bringing her back to her senses. He informs her that the strike team have returned and that they met some sort of entity in the dark ether. She seems confused and concerned by this, and leaves to go and meet with the strike team, allowing us to see her laptop, opening on a page detailing the statuses of the Requiem heads, Ravenov and Samantha Maxis, and some of the others, although not as important, confirming both Samantha and Ravenov are seemingly still alive. Given her apparent connection to the entity, now might be a good time to delve into exactly who Ava Jansen is.
Ava Jansen, Private Journal. 8th of June 2020. 14 years since I learned I was adopted. Happened in biology class. We did blood type tests. Mine ruled out Mum and Dad as my birth parents. I marched straight home and turned the place upside down looking for my birth certificate. Instead, I found a CD-ROM full of research by someone named Elizabeth Gray. Her photo. I knew that face from a hazy childhood memory I told myself was a dream. When they came home, my parents, the ones who actually raised me, told me about their old friend, the one who left and never came back. What could be so damned important that you'd abandon a 3-year-old? It tore me up so much. I dove into physics to avoid that question. In time, I stopped looking for her in the files and focused on the research itself. Schrödinger, Hawking, Kaku, they all had theories about other universes and dimensions. Elizabeth Gray's work went beyond mere theory. Her painstaking dissections of dark ether lifeforms, her spectrographic analyses of their tissues, her partnership with Oscar Strauss to codify the exotic physics animating these impossible organisms. The more I understood, the less I was driven by anger and resentment to study her work. Now all that's left is to exceed her.
We learn from her audio journal that, at some point likely in middle school, she learned in biology class that her parents, who in Act 1 she states to be ex-South African National Intelligence, were not actually her birth parents. Running home to try and dig out a birth certificate, she instead finds a disc filled with the research of Dr. Elizabeth Gray, detailing her investigation into Ethereum and partnership with Dr. Oscar Strauss to do so. Initially angry at the revelation that she was abandoned at 3 years old, she began to grow more curious than upset as she aged, finding the research more and more fascinating and understanding its capability to change the world. So Gray is her biological mother, but then she was adopted and grew up in South Africa. An interesting note is that, though she would keep this largely to herself, throughout her childhood she would experience dreams of a rift, with a shadowy figure calling out from beyond it.
Dr. Ava Jansen, audio, whatever this is. I just need to unload my brain a bit. Alright. To be clear, I am perfectly aware that any correlation between dreams and reality is purely coincidental. It's only that figure in the rift. I've seen it before. I had these dreams when I was a kid. Thought they'd gone for good years ago. In my dreams, the figure, it would call to me. Yeah. And it would feel so familiar. Like I knew it somehow. Look, this is probably just stress. It's the only logical explanation. But I'll just tell Green I need to take a mental health day. You know, after the apocalypse.
By the time she completed her university studies in physics and published her PhD paper, Alternative Dimensions: Worlds Within Worlds, she was both lauded as a genius and branded a quack, totally dividing the scientific community in two branches. In interviews, she would try to defend herself, but it was often an uphill battle, with interviewers such as C. Cassidy often being unable to mask their criticisms. And we learn about this within Selma Green when she was reading about this interview with Dr. Jansen online in Act 1 cutscene. Jansen then caused further controversy with the release of a talk online entitled Ethereum, a thought experiment, wherein she hypothesizes that the decay of a hypothetical exotic element that she names Ethereum could produce enough energy to tear a hole between our world and another one. As players, we can say for certain that this is a development of the research she inherited from her mother. In particular, this is a direct extension of Dr. Oscar Strauss's Ethereum neutralizer technology that the Requiem Strike team put to work in Forsaken, where rather than just neutralizing the element, she wishes to channel the energy created in this process to tearing open rifts. Jansen is well aware of the existence of Ethereum from this research, but is the first person to pose it to the public, thus the need to dub it a thought experiment, as she had no access to any reserves of it. One critic, having responded to this talk, stated, "Jansen is a quack, a charlatan. None of her lecture was based on peer-reviewed studies, it was pure conjecture, polished until it shone with just a glimmer of truth, and then tossed into the forum of public debate." Again, we can see this when Selma Green was reading an article in the Act 1 cutscene. Suffice to say, her lack of any hard evidence for Ethereum existing was not taken very well. This was soon followed by a knock at the door of her university flat in 2016, after which the CIA entered, confiscating her research, and left. 12 days after, she was released from their custody, again making headlines. At her lowest point, Jansen was approached by Viktor Zakhaev. He offered to fund her research all to aid the greater good, or quote-unquote greater good, effectively telling her exactly what she needed to hear to get her on side. In reality, he saw potential to finally fulfill her father's dream and destroy his enemies using the destructive potential of Ethereum. After the location of the Ethereum samples by Zakhaev and Fletcher, and the start of the outbreak in Urzikstan, Ava was moved there to continue her research. Despite her misgivings about the CIA, she quickly realized Zakhaev's true goals and made her contact with Deadbolt, who were able to free her and integrate her into their effort to end the outbreak. Additionally, she would call her mother, explaining that Zakhaev and their employers were not who she thought, and that they used Gray's research for bad ends, referring to Gray as her birth mother. Working with Dr. Barrera, she successfully confirmed that Strauss's method of neutralizing Ethereum was brilliant, but too imprecise. Their initial tests yielded similar results to that of Strauss's, but was unable to shatter crystalline Ethereum. Also important to note here is that, following the test, Ravenov noticed that Ava began having a severe headache, seemingly as the Aether storm began its regular surge across Urzikstan. She claims these are just headaches she's always had, and medicates them with clozapine, a medicine for schizophrenia. His method only neutralized at the atomic level, whereas they would need to go even further, achieving nuclear decay. Interestingly, this is exactly what she stated in her lecture, and that it would possibly lead to the breaching of dimensions. Using more modern methods than Strauss, they were able to perfect the neutralizer and deploy it, causing the events we've already discussed in Act 3. Ava is obviously a brilliant scientist, possibly even smarter than Elizabeth Gray, her alleged birth mother, and even Dr. Oscar Strauss, but this makes sense given that she had a lot of this knowledge when she started researching as a child and a connection with the Dark Aether. But she is just as troubled as she is intelligent. She suffers what she believes to be schizophrenia, with severe headaches, hallucinations, and dreams, but it is possible that these are signs of something more, and that much is obvious. Back to the entity. As we've discussed, Ava claims to have seen it in visions from when she was a child, and once the Dark Aether is readily accessible to Deadbolt, it seems to be able to speak through Ava. However, let's dig a little deeper and discuss some of its quotes that many players may not have heard or have even had a chance to think about.
How could we have forgotten so much? Impressions swallowed in light. It didn't like that. Let us in. Let us in. Let us through. We can't find them anymore. We miss you, old friend. We remember you. We stole things from ourselves and never gave them back. We were never alone, were we? Who would trap a memory? You brought the light with you. You will take it when you go. You have the glare of the bright blaze on you. You've stayed long enough. Go back to the light. A blank page always was the best listener. Back again, we knew you would be. Can you hear the echo? Do you see the shape in the mist? Ears that will not hear, eyes that cannot see. Eyes of glass watched every move we made. Flee the shadows again and again. Forever together, finally alone. Forever trapped on the outside, looking in. Help us, we can't see, we can't remember.
Now, while some of these quotes are addressed to the player, many are more contemplative and give us real insight into the entity. There are repeated references to the entity having forgotten important things.
How could we have forgotten so much? Help us, we can't see, we can't remember.
Furthermore, it repeatedly claims to have lost things or taken things from itself and can no longer find them.
We forgot something important again. We hid things from ourselves, buried them. We can't find them anymore. We stole things from ourselves and never gave them back.
Furthermore, the entity makes multiple references to becoming whole.
Never alone. No more. Smudges on the mirror. So close, just out of reach. Take our hand and never let go. We are one, but never whole. We were never alone, were we?
Finally, I'd like to make note of two quotes in particular, but I won't share the meaning for this until later.
Eyes of glass watched every move we made. A blank page always was the best listener.
So what do we have? We have a brilliant scientist whose apparent birth mother just so happens to be one of the only people in the world privy to information about a whole other reality, and who has had dreams of an entity in said alternate reality since childhood, and an entity who lives in an alternate reality who claims confusion about exactly what it is, unable to remember certain things, but above all, knowing that it wants to be whole. It doesn't take a genius scientist like Ava to be able to see the link here, but this wouldn't be much of a solid theory if a thematic link was the only thing we have to go on. So what else is there? When we go into the Dark Aether in Act 4, we need to collect 4 items. These are also the items that are then used in the Easter egg quest to re-enter the Dark Aether as well. These are a sealed leather-bound diary, a broken down surveillance camera used for home security, a prescribed bottle of antipsychotic medication, a dog collar, the description of which states in no uncertain terms the tag says not so, so. Now some players may have seen the colour and the diary and instantly jumped to Samantha Maxis. After all, her dog, Not So Fluffy, played a role in Cold War's story, and she did keep a diary during her time in Block 8. If you are thinking that, unfortunately you're only half right. Not So was Sam's dog, that's true, which definitely echoes the original Aether story, since her dog is essentially what created the Hellhounds, but after learning from the director, Eddie Richtofen, what had to be done to defeat the Forsaken, none other than Dr. Elizabeth Grey promised that she would look after Not So from there on out. And we can even see that the Hellhounds in Modern Warfare 3 Zombies seem to resemble that of Not So Fluffy. Now, Grey was obviously detained shortly after that, after Richtofen shut down Requiem and had all of the strike team and Requiem heads apprehended to be taken to Black Site 13, Terminus Island, which seems to be one of the launch maps for COD 2024 Zombies. However, Ava states that she was 3 years old when Grey disappeared. This means it was far more likely that Weaver, Grey, Carver and Strauss had already escaped from captivity by that point, and the events of Black Ops Gulf War had already played out. Given Grey's feelings towards Sam, if Not So was still alive by the time of Grey's escape, she would have almost certainly found the dog and made good on her promise to look after her. This therefore means that during Ava's first 3 years, she was constantly around Not So. It's even possible that, once Grey disappeared, Ava's adoptive parents also took the dog in. As for the diary, Sam did indeed keep a diary. In fact, she kept 2, both during her time in quarantine, after she came out of the Dark Aether on Firebase C, but neither of these were private per se. All of the entries ended up logged in Requiem's archives, and that's how we know about them, and the diary itself may not have even had any sentimental value. On the other hand, if Ava were to have had a diary to record all of the traumatic visions and dreams she experienced as a vulnerable child with no one there to explain them, that may be of far more relevance. Additionally, the entity states,
A blank page always was the best listener. So many secrets etched in ink.
now those items were the hard part. For the other two, the explanation is fairly simple. As we've discussed, Ava is medicated for schizophrenia. This is a bottle of her medication. For the camera, we can pretty easily say it's got nothing to do with Sam, as it's used for home surveillance. It does beg the question though, was Ava being watched throughout her childhood? If so, by who? Like I said before, the entity tells us,
Eyes of glass watched every move we made.
which seems to be talking about the camera. If this is the case, it seems like there were people who had a vested interest in Ava's development all throughout her childhood, but now I need to address the elephant in the room. How would the entity know all of this? The first time we see the entity, it is quite literally mirrored with Ava on the other side of the rift at the end of Act 3. Whenever it speaks, it talks about wanting to be whole, and most of all, it knows a lot of things that pertain directly to Ava's life. It even has items that seemingly belong to her. I post to you guys that Ava and the entity are one person, but split into 2. It is my belief that from the moment she was born, Ava was somehow trapped between 2 worlds, consciously in one, while some unconscious, darker half of her is trapped in the other, Dark Aether. Way back in Cold War, we learned from Valentina that children in the womb exposed to high levels of Ethereum can be born with an inherent connection to the Dark Aether, and that is how the Forsaken used Valentina, pretending to be her father, to manipulate her to trying to free him from the Dark Aether. But clearly with Ava, this is on another level. She is clearly something else entirely. But I want to go further. We saw from Sam that people don't just get Dark Aether powers, and Ava's powers in their untrained state are far in excess of what Sam was capable of in hers. So just imagine what Ava would be capable of if she gained full control over her abilities. Ava's birth is such a mysterious topic right now, and with the implications that she was monitored in childhood, suffice to say she was no normal child. I'm going to propose this to you. I believe Ava was manufactured as a product of Grey's research, very much possibly by Eddie Richtofen. After all, he was the one who had her apprehended and likely experimented on her at Terminus Island. We've had leaks saying that there's some sort of lab there, so most likely it's a lab as well as a prison. Ava finds it when looking for a birth certificate. Metaphorically, the research is her birth certificate. Ava is quite literally the culmination of all of the research belonging to Grey, and sadly, I believe that the creation of the entity is an unfortunate side effect of that. One person split between two worlds, with Ava being physically hurt by what's missing with her headaches and visions, and the entity being mentally hurt with its amnesia and longing, which is common for people trapped in the dark ether. By the end of Modern Warfare Zombies, Ava may reunite with this other half of herself, gaining incredible power over the dark ether, but will this turn her into the ultimate ally or the ultimate foe? And what does this mean for Samantha Maxis if this isn't her? Has she already escaped from the dark ether? Is she still in there? And what does this mean with relation to Dr. Ava Jansen? This is all extremely interesting, but what do you guys think? Are you still convinced that the entity is Samantha Maxis, or have I won you over that the entity could in fact be a lost piece of Ava? Please let me know in the comments all of your thoughts. Is there anything you disagree with me on, or are you in agreement with everything? I'm excited for how this all plays out and how it relates to COD 2024 zombies and COD 2025 zombies that will likely be set after the events of Modern Warfare 3 zombies. But anyways, thank you for watching the video. Make sure to subscribe if you're not here for latest and greatest Call of Duty news and information. So anyways, thank you for watching, and bye.